Is there someone I can send a donation?
I think they take PayPal, Tom.
I told you so.
Oh, sweet.
That's Sarah Swimming.
Yes.
Are they kosher hot dog? Are they kosher hot dog?
She didn't ask you.
Like, that's the nickname for Sarah
That's it.
Ah, it's important. I was working a little west of the acre, and we had an internal room. And then we had a photo of this, so I'm watching out the window, and I can see Brian, he's sitting down there on the high heel outside of Starbucks, and I see a child who looks vaguely familiar and playing by the fountain. And the child's sitting in the fountain, the child puts one leg on the fountain, the child puts one leg in the fountain, and I see Sarah come shoot down Starbucks.
I'm thinking mom won't be upset now. I'm taking my shoes off.
Yeah, that was a big problem before, is that I got my shoes wet.
I won't take my shoes off.
Seems to be sort of into a brain rot.
My tablet PC I put Ubuntu on,
There's lots of cash in this one.
because that actually has support for about 7% of the screen features, which is the most expensive.
It's the ukulele rolls and then
If you want to experience true Praise and Love Linux virtual keyboard as a touch screen.
But as we were coming out, we were all checking out.
Like Ubuntu or anything else. Oh, man.
I barely heard. There's a couple things where somebody was not happy.
Okay, I will
Unless
plan
it
the
works and it's on an airplane.
presentation is slightly
Then all bets are off.
but we're getting it back.
We did take a break. Yeah, we made that mistake yesterday.
We saw you walking over. You're in front of that.
To the side of it.
I waved.
So we got all these up and down. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it would be great if they're barriers.
Okay. Why don't we get started? My name is John Jorgensen. I work right here at Rutgers Camden, and I'm a librarian, and I do a lot of digital work, creating digital repositories and digital libraries of various kinds, and we're here to talk about search engines, and specifically Solr and Swish-e. I'm going to talk about Swish-e, and then Elmer Masters is going to talk about Solr, and nuts and bolts, right? Elmer? Installation, use, what they're good for,
Yeah.
what they're bad for. Of course, Solr is apparently good for
Nothing.
everything. So, right into Swish-e. Swish-e is, how many people have actually used it here? Okay, a lot of people haven't. Has anybody never, how many people have never installed a full-text search engine? Okay, Swish-e, part of the things that are great about it, it's free. It's available for Windows and Linux. One of the reasons why I really like it is it's extremely highly configurable. Most of the scripts and setup configuration that you can get, they're either shell scripts or Perl scripts. So you can do very much whatever you like with it once you get it set up. It's fairly hard to break, and I'll get into ways that we've managed to break it. And it'll function indexing directories and as a web crawler. And part of the highly configurable part is you can make it do just about anything along those lines as well. I'm going to talk about a feature called File Filter, which is actually an excellent way to get this Swish-e to index just about anything. We started using it several years ago after when we were trying to get rid of when we were getting rid of Waze as our full-text search engine. And we looked at Harvest, which was popular at the time. We looked at htdig, and we actually used htdig for a while. And we were going like that too as well. Because that's what it's like. One of the big problems we had with all of the search engines also that we were trying, htdig was pretty fast with indexing, but the search engine itself is kind of not real good, not good support for Boolean operators. Almost all the other search engines that were out there, and I suspect even now it's very much still the same case, they took forever to index a data set, a set of documents. And after a while, that very quickly becomes unmanageable as collections start to grow. At the time, we didn't have anything like what we've got now as far as indexing needs and the number of documents we're dealing with. So now it would take literally days to re-index. And re-indexing is something that we need to do every single day. So a lot of them are unmanageable. So a big advantage of Swishe is the speed in which it does that. It does require Perl to be installed on your machine, even if it's Windows. And several Perl modules. There's documentation on the website for that. And if my computer is working correctly, which it's not, but I'll get back to that later. And I'll show you the website and where some of the documentation is. With Windows, just as a note, there are libraries in Linux like libxml2, zlib, and it's not coming to me, but a couple of others that need to be installed in Linux. You need to make sure that they're there. They're typically there in a regular install of Linux. With Windows, they've packaged all that stuff up into the binaries, so you don't have to worry about it. It'll work pretty good. One other thing about the installation, again, I'll show you when we go through the documentation. They recommend, before you compile or install the program, that if you're planning on doing PDF or Word documents or Excel documents or anything like that, they have recommended programs that you install beforehand. And with current installations of Swishe, I believe they'll do things automatically then. Then you can just index PDFs and you can index Word documents if you look at the documentation and pre-install these packages like cat documents and PDF libs. What is it called? It's not coming to me. For PDF files. As I will get to as we go through this, I'll tell you why we've never bothered doing that, because there are some advantages to actually doing it in a different way. And again, that's a feature called File Filters that I'll be getting to. So, more nuts and bolts. When it's installed, it's going to be 4 subdirectories that everything's going to be in. There's the binary directory, the indexes directory where all of your indexes are going to go when they're compiled, and 2 things that we actually need to talk about, which is the index config and the search config. The index config, and again, if my computer was working correctly, I would be showing you one of the files right now, but I'll get to that really quickly. simple instructions. It's a shell script, so you don't really have to pay a whole lot of attention to what's in there. And these all come with samples when you install the program, with lots and lots of comments in there and instructions on how to do it and where to put each thing. But basically, it's going to tell you, it's asking very basic questions. What do you want to call this index file for this collection that you're doing? Where is the stuff that you want to index? And whether you want to do it as a spider to kind of crawl using HTTP, or whether you're doing a directory structure. So what is the stuff you're indexing? You can limit by file extension. So if you've got a collection with HTML docs and PDFs, on this line you would put just index only .pdf space .html. And if you've got Word docs and text documents and CGI scripts all in the same directory, it will leave all that alone. And how you are indexing it, it'll handle soundex and stemming. And if you've got meta fields available, you would put a list of the meta fields for it to look for. What do I mean by that? On a very simple level, when you've got HTML documents, you can have meta tags in there. And you can label meta tags whatever you want. So you can have things like, meta court citation, content equals, and then have a court citation. Or a caption for a court case. So meta name equals citation, content equals, put the caption in there. One of the great things about Swish-e is that if you fill in this and put in some available meta fields, it'll create, as it indexes the material, secondary indices of all of the meta tags that you specify in this instruction, so that you can actually do fielded searching. So in our court documents, for example, caption is one of the standard things that gets into a meta tag for all the court documents. So when you're searching our court documents, you can put in caption equals Jones, and then put in a full text search. And it'll search the full text for all the documents, but only give you the ones where Jones appears with the caption. It's really powerful and good, and one of the reasons why I keep sticking with Swish-e. Another thing, and again, I'll get through this, hopefully the computer will unlock and I'll be able to show you these things. File filter is a wonderful extra feature of Swish-e. And we use it a lot to do all kinds of things with, and it's in fact why I don't bother pre-compiling all of the extensions that it likes for Word and for PDF documents. With the file filter command, what you can do is to say, and the syntax is very simple. It's file filter space, for example, pd.pdf. So what that'll say is, when you run into a PDF file, you already said look for them and index them, but when you get a PDF file, and then you can put in a command. So when you get a PDF file, run this command in order to index the file. And it'll filter the document through the program you've specified as it goes into the indexing machine. Why would you do that? Why do I do that? I do that mainly because of this here. We get a lot of PDF files, for example, which are have text in them, and they're going to be full text indexed, and that's great. But what I also want to do is I want to have all of those meta fields that are available for my HTML documents to be available for the PDFs as well. So, wrote a Perl script, and as the PDF documents get picked up during the indexing process, because I put in a large command here, what I do, for example, and I can show you this, is it takes the PDF document and runs it through the Perl script. Perl script stops everything, makes a call to a database, gets all the metadata on that document out of my MySQL database, formats them as HTML meta tags, sends that through, and Swish-e, all Swish-e is concerned is it's getting HTML data in nicely formatted meta tag form. And so it starts creating those secondary indices for the PDF PDF document, just as with the HTML. And then it starts running PDF to text, and it filters the context of the contents of the PDF document through it as it goes through the Swishe indexer. So we get all of the secondary meta tag fields that are available from the database, as well as the full text of the PDF document, and we can do much richer searching. It's great to be able to just run a Word document, run a PDF through, but we can actually do a lot more with a little bit of finagling with file filter, and it's available. Come on. Okay, search config is a much shorter file. It only asks 3 questions. What are the index files that we're going to be pulling things from? How do you want to sort the material as the search comes in? And what to display in the search results. In the search results, when we look at the documentation a little bit, you'll see it's got basic things like the dot path, the description of the document, because it'll do a keyword in context result with highlighting that you can turn on and off. And all of those meta fields that you may have specified are going to be available in the search results for display purposes. And on what to display in the search results, you can put them down. Here's what I want to show in my search results in order to give a nice contextual piece of information as search results. And the last thing is the search CGI. It's a Perl script packaged with Swish, and it acts as a front end for a web application. PHP and Java are available. I don't know how well they work. They may not work well, but they've got them. And again, I'll go through a search.cgi file and show you what's in there. Index is really fast, great support for meta indexing. The only problems we've had with it so far is that with large collections, and at this point, for example, with circuit court decisions and our congressional hearings, we've got lots and lots of files for it to index. And say, for example, with the circuit courts, over 100,000 documents, Swishe can't handle that. Even though the actual file sizes don't amount to something that Swish says it can't handle, it still can't handle the sheer number of documents. And that, I can't find documentation for it in Swishe as a limitation, but it grinds to a halt and can never finish the indexing process. At some point, it just goes to sleep, it's dead. There's a way to deal with that. And it can be messy and it's inconvenient, but it works. The way we handle it is we just chop up the number of indexes and make more indexes. And then on the front end, when we're organizing the search, say in the search.cgi script, we just search multiple indices. And we get the same results in the end, but it's a slightly more complex setup. It also has a way to, after you've created indexes, to merge indexes, but as Tom will tell you, because he's actually tried it, it doesn't work as smoothly as it probably should, and it takes a long time to do. So, and here's the website for Swishe.org. Here is the setup file for what they call the index config. So this is the config file for indexing one of our collections for the Office of Administrative Law. The important things here is just the index file. So we're going to call it oal.index. Not a big deal. And again, you can see all of these commentaries telling you exactly what you should be doing. So it's not hard to do. The index directories, here's the location on the file server of where the documents you want. We're limiting it to indexing only, HTML and PDFs. And here's that file filter command that I do like so much.
Do you like it, John?
Do. Where every
How much do
time...
you like it, Doug?
I like it so much. Here's how much I like it. For example, we're doing HTML and PDFs here. The HTMLs are just running into the indexing engine and getting parsed by Swish-e just on its own, because Swish-e can handle that. But when we come across a PDF, instead of just running the PDF through an automatic converter and taking the text out, we're doing it, I'm running a crazy little script here, and these two commands are explained down here. This is just telling Swish-e to take the whole document as name and grab the file name. That's just making sure that we grab the file and feed that file into PDF2 text2, which is something just that I wrote that does what I described. Makes a call to a database, grabs the meta information, formats it as HTML meta tags, sends through the, start HTML head, all the meta tags, and then a body tag, and then it sends through the text of the PDF file using just PDF to text. And then when that's all done, this program sends end body and HTML. Not that bad, but you get such a much richer searching possibility out of it when you do little things like that.
You'll share this file?
Pardon?
You will share this file?
I will share that file. I can show it to you as well. But yeah, anybody can have that file. I talked about all kinds of programs yesterday too, and I will give away anything to anybody. Just ask my wife. Yeah. So that's there, and it works really well. Stop that. That's what Skype is for. So, the other interesting and important things about this file, metanames. So, for the Office of Administrative Law, we've got docket, decided, Unix formatted date. That's another weird thing about Swish-e. It wants Unix dates for time range searching. It'll do time searching, but it wants a Unix formatted date. Caption, judge, department, status, whether it's a final or initial decision, and summary, which for us is typically the first paragraph of text. You can search separately on any or all of those fields as well as full text because all of that stuff is there. And again, here are the property names, and this is the same thing. And then follow symlinks, fuzzy indexing with stemming or soundex, and default contents. I mean, as far as Swish-e is concerned, everything it's getting in this setup is HTML, even if it's not HTML. Search config is very simple. What to display at the very top of the document, where is the index that we're going to be using here, the title property, and how many hits per page to put up. I mean, very simple things. And what do you want to display in your search results, and what's your priority for ranking? So again, not hard. Last thing to show you, and I'm going to rush through this pretty quickly. This is search.cgi. It's a gigantic Perl script, which makes for a really good display. We use it all the time for everything, and it works very well. The only important things to do here is actually right between here and here, and they instruct you very carefully to do it. This is one for our congressional hearings. So everything gets left alone. Here's where all the search config files are, and we wanted to use the hearings one. And it's here, and it's here, and it tells you to put it there, and if you put those things there, this script will just work for this collection, just with that. That's all the Perl you need to really deal with to make this work. Not bad. If you want to do more stuff, for example, with this stuff, we don't actually go straight to the document because this is actually a large collection of individual PDF files. In order to display it, it gets displayed through a CGI script. So we start fooling around with the search results as soon as we get the search results back. And prepend path is a CGI script and file equals. And then later on, we're going to fiddle around with the swish doc path variable. And the swish doc path variable is going to have the key, the library congress control number actually, which is the key to getting the document. And it's just going to stick it in there. And it's also going to stick in a page number. And here's where it's just showing what it's going to show as far as search results. And it makes for a nice display. And the rest of this is me fiddling around with the Swish description, so I can grab a page number so we can display a specific page number from the search results and get you a really nice in-context search result. I'm not going to go through that because that would be a bit much. But I can just show you what we actually get out of here. So searching the New Jersey Courts page, we can put in here. That's what you get out of Swishe. You can see all of our secondary indices being used to give you a nice, rich contextual display. You've got the keyword in context result with highlighting. And we set it so that the caption of the case is actually going to be your link to the document. And it all just works. So, I don't know if we should do questions now or wait until, well, taking up about a half hour, which is a little bit too long. Homer, would you like to talk about Solr?
No.
Questions?
Now, actually, if people have, yeah, we can wait questions. Look, it's going to say. You're just waiting for one thing to load. So actually, if you want to take one or two questions.
One or two questions? Did I talk way too fast? I talk way too much.
I guess nobody has any questions. I'm going to wave this book around. I'm just trying to do a bad thing. Other than that, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Elder.
Good morning.
So this doesn't work like my map. Jack.
That's because it's sorry.
That's going to slow this whole thing down.
Okay, so far.
Yep, there you go. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Apache Solr, which is yet another full-text search engine. I'm going to talk about it specifically in the context of Drupal, because that's how far I've gotten with it so far. Although I do have plans on using it to index all of that case law that we have laying around from Carl Malwood's publicresource.org collection. Plus, I may start collecting new stuff since I figured out how to do that too. And there are actually the agenda here. There's actually I've added some links to the session description, which I'll get to in just a second, because I know exactly where it is, which are actually the basis for my presentation. There are a couple things about Apache Solr that are important to know. First of all, it's Java. So unlike needing Perl to run, for example, which is nice, you actually need a Java server system running. So you need Tomcat. It actually comes with, if you download the binary, it actually comes with a servlet container, Java talk, called Jetty that it will just run with. But I've actually configured it to run in Tomcat because I actually need Tomcat for some other stuff that we're doing anyway. So rather than having a whole mess of Java servers running, we're just going to go with Tomcat. That, however, doesn't make it necessarily all that difficult to set up and use, because you can download the binaries. The instructions from the Solr website are actually remarkably lucid, which is actually unusual. If people have ever tried to deploy Java stuff before, yeah, sometimes it's tough. But this one, actually, the docs that are in the Solr wiki here are actually pretty good, and so you can follow along. Additionally, there is an excellent tutorial in the Drupal handbook. It's actually, and I love Drupal. Everybody in this room knows that. This is actually one of the few handbook pages in Drupal that actually works from beginning to end. So if you follow it along and read carefully, you actually come out with Solr running inside of your Drupal system as it's indexing you. Okay. Now Solr will index a lot of different stuff. Okay. It'll index full text documents. It'll index stuff that's in databases. Okay. So that's important for Drupal. The way that it works with Drupal is it actually takes the content out of Drupal. It does calls against the Drupal database, downloads the nodes and the information about the nodes, including taxonomies, including you can actually go in and tinker, which I haven't done yet, but you can actually go in and add in CCK special content fields. It tries to get those, by the way, and it works sometimes, but depending on how stuff is set up and what modules you're using, you may not get them all. But what it does, it actually grabs all that node information, and that becomes the record that gets indexed. So it actually takes all that node data and stores it in the index. Okay. Then when you run a search against it, the search results that come back, as we'll see in a minute, are a lot faster than the regular Drupal search, because what it does is it actually uses the node information from the index itself to do the highlights and to do the returns. Tom? Okay.
You may have just said this because my mind was wandering, but will it operate directly against the MySQL tables?
Yes.
Okay, so you really don't need to be terribly worried about Drupal getting in your way.
Right, exactly. Yeah, once you configure it, Drupal gets out of your way, which is a good thing. And it even has the module, we'll look at some of the configs in a minute, but the module actually has like because the initial indexing is done, is governed through cron, and you can tell it only do 50 nodes at a time, every cron run, so that it doesn't bog down your site. Because if you just turn it loose, the initial indexing run can be, really annoying.
And an index can be set up as some arbitrary SQL query. Basically say, go suck this query's worth and index.
I think that's right, but I don't know for sure. But that sounds correct. I haven't actually gotten really deep under the hood with this yet. I'm just starting to work on that now. Because one of the interesting things about it is all of the neat stuff that it does sort of just out of the box. Okay? Because what happens is you end up with a situation where you can run fairly sophisticated searches. Severe weather alert from Philadelphia. Should we be worried?
No,
Well, if you're not worried, I'm not worried. There we go.
I'm not flying.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'm not flying today either.
Should we be worried?
That's right. Should we be worried? But what happens is that all the results that you see here, for folks that are familiar with Drupal, one of the most expensive things that you can do in Drupal is try to display a list of nodes. Okay? Because Drupal loves to load. It runs there's a hook called loadnote, and it loads the node and everything that's associated with it. If you're doing searches against sort of the standard Drupal search, it actually will load all of the nodes that are returned by that search. And that can be a long and painful process. There was a point in time, Sarah, you're a little concerned.
I'm a little concerned about your search results.
Oh, I'll get to that.
Okay.
There was a point in time when the Drupal.org, the mother site, would literally die if like more than 10 people were searching for stuff at once, which was, just really, really bad. And actually, so the folks at Drupal.org and Acquia have championed Solr as the replacement search mechanism that's preferred by Drupal. Because by having all of the node information stashed in the index, all this stuff is coming directly back from the search engine itself. It's not coming out of the Drupal database. So it takes care of all the highlighting of the search terms, but does link to the nodes, but the nodes don't actually get loaded until you select something. Okay. So what was your...
Okay, so I'm a user and I search your site for evidence, and I expect survey of evidence to come up first in
Yep.
the search results, and then,
You mean this one?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Can you tune it?
This isn't tuned yet.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, there's a remarkable level of tuning that can be done. One of the great things about this module also is that it has a really high level of tunability. And that it then, all that stuff then can be used to supplant the XML on Solr itself, so that it deals with the rankings and all that sort of stuff based on, because this is, I've started fiddling with the tuning yet, but it hasn't been done yet, which is why this is running on the development server yet, because I don't have it tuned up. But if you do a search, in this case we did a search for evidence, you'll get, these are the sort of results you get. It tells you how many items it found with that. It also tells you then that there are 7 first-year lessons and 25 upper level lessons. So let's say we just wanted to look at lesson topics from the first year. We could click on that. And that now, gives us more of a breakdown. So we're actually we can get faceted searching. And then this interface will get tuned up.
So how does that filter actually work now? Or is that tied into views somehow? Or
Excuse me?
how does that filter your right-hand column actually work? Is that tied into views somehow? Or
No, it's actually tied to, it's actually part of the search engine. Solr handles faceted searching as part of its built-in fun stuff. It also does the highlighting of terms by default. It also does, if we actually pick a lesson here, it also handles more like this by default. So, and again, the more like this is configurable, so I can tell it give more weight to the title, give more weight to the body. The other thing that we're going to be able to do is index the lesson XML, which is a huge resource of information, but never show it. So we'll be able to actually really fine tune the stuff, and we'll be able to parse up the more like this list. So it'll be like more lessons like this, more Elang-Dell material like this, more Legal Education Commons material that's related to this, so that we'll have those sorts of things within. Yes, Nick?
Does it support faceted search by terms?
Yes, you can configure all of the faceted searching and everything.
My question probably doesn't come out right. I mean, like, where the person can type in the facets. Google style.
I'm not sure exactly. I think so, because there's a lot of faceted search stuff. I haven't really gotten into the sort of the deep mechanics of the faceted stuff and the faceted search stuff yet. But yeah, I believe.
People asking for that on our docket site.
Yeah.
They want to be able to say, I want these courts, or this court, or this court.
Yeah, and it'll handle some Boolean stuff also, so you can do and or and that sort of stuff. The documentation's a little thin on exactly how the queries get written, because the documentation's been written by Java programmers. So all of the sample queries are actually Java statements, and I haven't parsed them all out yet. But it works out. But it does work out pretty well. Now, one of the things that you can do is it does a pretty good job of figuring out what it is you're really looking for. Okay. So I tell it I want to find promissory estoppel, because that's what I'm pretty sure that I want. And then it says, did you mean promissory estoppel? Oh yes, that's actually what I meant. And it does. Thank you. And then it will. It then brings up the results for promissory estoppel. Okay. So it'll do that spelling correction type stuff, and that sort of thing also. And that's all just sort of like out of the box, without having had to actually get into any XML files yet. So that's actually kind of cool. And then there is a whole set of, let me just pull it. See, there's content bias, so we can actually go through. Now, currently, the one that I'm running right now, this is actually the sort of sample version running the Jetty circlet container. I haven't connected up to Tomcat yet. But you know, you can do your basic configuration here. You can do stuff like make the index read and write, which is the normal thing. Now the reason why that's cool is when you create a node, there's actually a hook in the module so that when you create a node, it gets sent to the index. So it doesn't wait for cron or anything else. It's part of the process. So by using that hook, stuff that gets added to the site gets added to the index just like that. You know, you don't have to do stuff like call up Elmer and say, can we refresh that index? Yeah. It'll all do that. You can make Solr the default search. You can, I've fiddled with this a little bit and I haven't been able to figure out how to use it in a way that doesn't make my head hurt. So I have that turned off for the taxonomy links. But I'll figure that out. It does some odd stuff sometimes. And then there's the last check to enable spell checker and suggestions. Now, when you download the Solr integration module, it actually gives you like 6 different modules. The only ones you really need are the framework, which is at the top of the list, and the actual search integration, which is at the bottom of the list. There's a bunch of stuff in between that will let you do stuff like images if you have a lot of images, and we may turn that on. There's integration with organic groups, which I haven't tried because I know how well organic groups are integrated generally. So it's, I'm not exactly sure how that might work out. But yeah, in terms of like doing stuff like making sure that the survey of evidence gets up on the top, there are settings here that let me do stuff like add weight to, you know, if it's a lesson, it's supposed to get like the highest bias. I can also tune this in Solr in the configurations itself. Okay. Which can be kind of handy also, so that and that's sort of the challenging part now, right? I mean, that's, you know, being able to get it so that survey. You're right. Survey. If somebody just searches for evidence, survey of evidence should turn up at the top, and so it's going to be a challenge to get all that sorted out. But I'm sure it will. You can also exclude things from search, which is good for us because we have faculty who auto-publish lessons, but they don't want them known to the world. Actually, most of them don't want them known to the world because they're doing them for their students. Right now, you can find them in Drupal search because it's hard to suppress particular node types from the search. But this will do it. Just click that box, and we can leave out stuff like organic groups and, you know, some of this other stuff that we don't want to be included in the indexing itself. So if you have a particular content type, you know, that, I mean, maybe you only want one content type to index. You could hit that here.
Over, does it take any notice of taxonomy in any way, shape, or form?
It does.
Most of it has that feature of who's going to protect public links.
Yeah, and you can get right through enable filters. I think it's enable filters. Yeah, enable filters let you filter by the different content types for starters, and then you can also filter by taxonomy term. Okay, so you can get in and you can tweak all of this stuff also to sort of drive that, drive all of that. And if this isn't quite enough fun for you, because oh sure, it's going to complain now.
those options to exclude certain types from the index, is it excluded from the index or from the results?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Because if I then go uncheck it, is there going to be a big hole in our index that has to be indexed?
Yeah, you might.
I changed my mind later. So decide, like you had forum topics excluded there for understandable reasons.
Yeah, that actually leaves them out of the index.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
So if you later decide, maybe I want those forum topics in there, you uncheck that box.
It'll add them in.
So
And
it has to go and re-index all those topics.
Yeah, because it reads and writes from the index, and I believe it can delete from the index also. So if a node goes away, well, actually, I know that if a node goes away, it gets removed from the index. So, so it's tracking all of that stuff. That's why I actually gave it a fancy name. Right. So if you want to get there is a whole visual interface that lets you do stuff like look at the schema. So this is actually the Drupal schema that's getting loaded, and you can see somewhere down here, you can tell what parts of the somewhere in here, it's here, it's down towards the bottom. It actually maps the the components of a node to their here it is, body teaser. So this is where it's at. This is where it's actually telling you. This is where you're actually telling Solr what parts of a node you want indexed or not, right? So we don't index the teaser, right? Because for the most part, the teaser is just part of the body anyway. But if you have a site that you put together where you have separate teasers, which is high Drupal voodoo, but you can do it, you can actually set this to true, and then that way it'll do that. You can also decide whether or not, by the way, you actually want stuff stored in the database.
Wouldn't simply by setting that to true, it would put more of a weight on the teaser because things will show up twice?
Yeah, it might actually
Words
do
that are
that.
close to the top of the page would then therefore
Might have twice as much weight in it. That might be true. And then so you can get all of your other. So actually, if you have a lot of CCK specific content types, special stuff that you want to make sure gets in here, you need to add. You actually do need to get in and hit the XML and start adding this stuff in order to pick all this up. Okay. Now the other thing, of course, is that it's easy to imagine applying this to the fields for the case law data, right? One interesting things I picked up from the book, because if you're going to do this, there's like one good book, and that's this one, Solr 1.4 Enterprise Search Server. Okay. They just released 1.4.1 the other day, yesterday, or earlier this week. So what we're looking at here is actually the brand new shiny version, which I discovered last night required Tomcat 6 to run, after spending an hour trying to get it to run in Tomcat 5. I found an obscure little message somewhere that said, oh yeah, by the way, you need to run Tomcat 6 if you're running in Tomcat. So you can then map all of the fields in the HTML files. There's a way to write all that out also. So I'll be doing that. And then what happens is that you can actually create multiple indexes. So this is CALI Solr. And I'll probably actually throw everything in here because I want it all to pull through one spot anyway. But if I want wanted to index a separate collection, like say I want to index technoids using the same, using the same the same Tomcat instance. I can do Solr-technoids and just set up another set of data structures on the server, and then that will give me that same thing. So you can actually have multiple Solrs running at once. All right, time for questions. Okay.
How much have you looked into the indexing of various data sets into one collection, and then filtering it? Well, if I put stuff that, say, wasn't in Drupal in the same collection.
Well, actually, I don't know yet. I haven't tried it. It's theoretically possible. Book says I can do it, but I haven't actually tried it yet.
I know Solr can do it. My question is, if I wanted Drupal module to search.
To do it, yeah, will that work? Yeah, that I don't know yet. And I might need to make some provisions for that in the Drupal module, but I'll bet that I can figure it out.
You can certainly do that in Sphinx, but
Actually, it's very hard to do something like that in Sphinx, because Sphinx requires one to upgrade over index.
right, but you can have multiple data sources or multiple indexes.
Yeah, but if they don't match, like if they don't match schema-wise on the same list of fields, if you try to put them in a distributed index, it like swaps out.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that happens is that list of filters and stuff is actually being based on data that's in this XML file. So at least that's my current understanding. Like I said, I haven't tried it yet, so I don't know. What I'm hoping happens, if I'm lucky, when I add the case law stuff in here and in the appropriate place, I'll see those filters on the Drupal side. Now that might not be true, and if it's not true, then I'll have to figure something else out.
So if it doesn't have, I'm not seeing, maybe I just got cut to that part of the file, but I'm not seeing labels for these filters in here.
Yeah, there's a lot of processing of XML that's going on inside that module.
Well, I'm seeing these fields look very familiar.
Right.
They're Drupal fields. But when you come over and look at it inside your Drupal system, it's definitely not showing those field tags. It's showing.
You're right. It's not showing those field tags. It's showing what the other stuff.
And I'm not seeing, at least, and in the other file I looked at, I'm not seeing, string labels in here. So I imagine Drupal probably doesn't know what they are.
Yeah, Drupal might not know what they are. So in which case I'll have to tell Drupal what they are. There's got to be I haven't really looked into the module that much, but I'll sort it out.
Hopefully it's possible where you can make those changes without changing the module itself.
I'll just make another one. We'll sort it out. Any other questions? Swishy, Solr, Swishy. Tom, can you tell us about Sphinx in like 2 minutes?
No.
Excellent. So, but can I ask you a question, Tom?
Yes.
Or Sarah, one of those LII guys? How does this seem? Because I've never used Sphinx in Drupal, so I don't know. Actually, Nick, you guys use it too. How does this look like it compares to something like Sphinx?
Well, Sphinx is very much separate out. You go into Sphinx and you tell it what to index in Sphinx. So Sphinx runs the SQL queries themselves rather than having something pushed to it over web like this does.
Right.
So the way Sphinx typically works is you write a MySQL query, and then you actually have to list out every single field and say this one's a year each item, this one's a date type, and it's really fast for some things. It does not have the ability to do string-based filters, which is one thing that's a little annoying. One thing that's kind of nice from what I understand about Solr is I can have, you've got several fields here which are string, which supposedly can still be facets. So for things like our dockets database, I don't need to create a numeric ID for things that are inherently textual, like a core ID, which like ECD for the district.
Right.
You're getting a lot of stuff for free out of the module that you certainly wouldn't with Sphinx.
Right.
And the Sphinx modules that exist in the Drupal module stock are terrible.
Yeah, I found
One-
it much easier just to write my own function.
I actually ended up rewriting the one that had come out of Denmark to get it to work. It was a little odd. It was advertised as Drupal 6 compatible, and it absolutely was not at all. I have no idea what the guy was thinking, but it had to be completely redone. And it's reasonable, but it's not functioning at anything like that level.
Right.
Frankly, I have a little bit of envy here, but the thing is, if I do anything Java-based, Dan will kill me.
And it's installing this.
Installing it.
Yeah, I mean, after, and the thing is, like, after I made decided to do this, and really started to take a look at it, I realized it really does need to run on its own server. Plus, we've got, like I said, we're looking at some other Java-based stuff that requires Tomcat, so.
Which raises one of the great mysterious questions of life, right? Which is why there is no decent book on Java system administration.
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, somebody will make a fortune writing one.
Indeed, they may. Yeah, there's it's, I don't know, because we're, one of the things that, because we're looking at like doing like some document conversion using OpenOffice, which requires, the whole Tomcat thing too, and there's something else. I don't remember what, so,
I really do.
Yeah.
It's great. Upload to Google, then download it back.
go.
I had a question. I mean, search engines, like everything else, go in and out of fashion, and we've watched them sort of evolve over time. And I know some of this is algorithmic, some of it is sort of mind share. Solr certainly seems to have captured a lot of mind share recently. But I have a question mainly for John. Is Swish-e still being actively developed? Do you get a sense there's still a community around Swish-e?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was my sense too, is that it's sort of the old reliable. I mean, it seems to still be cooking right along.
We're still using it. I mean, our major reason, or my major reason for tiptoeing away from it is that it doesn't work terribly well with the SQL databases. So you've got a lot of stuff in it. Well, that's an issue. And the other issue for me is language learning. It just does not work with enough stuff.
Although I wonder, as I was listening to Elmer, have you ever tried this? Can you, well, number one, I'm not that familiar with Drupal. Can you just make direct queries against a MySQL database for Drupal?
Sure. So in theory, you could write a Swish-e front-end feeder that would do just that. And indeed, we do very little with Swish-e that isn't done through some kind of index stuffing intermediary. We very seldom turn it loose directly on something.
Right, so you could make a node query and get a list of what Swishe would think of as file names.
Sure.
Then feed them through and use file filter to pull out the content, however you want that content to go into the Swishe.
Yeah, and then the only issue is always that you've got to pay attention to permissions and all the other mechanics behind the scenes in your CMS to make sure that you're not indexing all of the draft documents that someone didn't want indexed.
Right, well, it depends on your initial MySQL query.
Sure. Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Right, well, Drupal has there's enough hooks in Drupal to make sure you only get like the most recent version and it's been published.
Right. There's this sort of ideological divide among Drupal. I'm sensing about whether or not it's wise to proliferate content types, and my feeling is that it is, for more or less the sorts of purposes that you're just describing.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that, like, when the